The cold seeped through the steel rolled door of Leo's garage, a damp chill that clung to his clothes and made his knuckles ache. He wiped the last smear of grease from a wrench and hung it on the pegboard. Outside, sodium lights cast a sickly orange glow over the empty asphalt. It was almost midnight. His eyes drifted, as they did every night now, across the four-lane road to the darkened corner of the public library's overflow lot. And there it was, a late 90s Chrysler sedan, the color of champagne gone flat, parked in the exact same spot, tucked away from the main lights, almost shy. For 3 weeks, it had been his final checkpoint of the day. And for 3 weeks, he'd witnessed the same ritual. A faint dome light would click on, illuminating a shock of white hair. A silhouette would shift, arranging a blanket over the driver's seat. Then the light would click off, and the car would become just another shadow. Someone was living in that car. What struck Leo wasn't the situation itself. He'd seen homelessness scattered across the city. It was the details that unsettled him. The paint was waxed. The chrome trim was polished. No trash on the dashboard, no clothes spilling from the back seat. It was immaculate, respectable, and profoundly sad. The man was a ghost. In the early mornings, Leo would catch glimpses of him walking stiffly toward the public restroom at the park a block away. He was old, probably in his late 70s, with a posture that was ramrod straight despite the obvious ache in his joints. He wore pressed trousers, a button-down shirt, a thin windbreaker that was no match for the creeping autumn cold. He never panhandled, never spoke to anyone. He moved through the periphery of the world with a quiet, heartbreaking dignity. Around noon the next day, the low guttural rumble of Harley-Davidsons filled the air. The sons of Odin rolled in like a storm front, 6 bikes, all chrome and black leather. Their leader, a mountain of a man they called Wrench, swung off his bike. He had a thick graying beard and eyes so pale blue they looked like chips of ice. In the 3 years they'd been coming to Leo's shop, they'd never caused a lick of trouble. They paid cash, paid on time, and respected his work. As Leo worked on Wrench's misfiring bike, the idea that had been forming in the back of his mind flickered dangerously. The sons weren't the law. They weren't a charity. But they had their own kind of justice, direct, uncomplicated, brutally effective. He pushed the thought away. Asking for their help meant stepping into a world of unspoken rules and violent consequences. Then, that same afternoon, while test driving a minivan, he saw the old man standing at one of the last payphones left in the city. He was holding the receiver with a trembling hand, his back to the street. But Leo could see his shoulders shaking. He was crying. He pulled over and watched from a distance, unable to hear the words but reading every syllable in the old man's collapsing posture. The rigid spine gone soft, a hand wiping tears from a weathered cheek. He was pleading. After a few minutes, the old man hung up, leaned his forehead against the cool metal of the enclosure, and stood there for a long moment before shuffling back toward the library lot. The Chrysler was already waiting for him. That sealed it. This wasn't just a man down on his luck. This was a man in active distress. Someone was hurting him. The next afternoon, Wrench came to pick up his bike. Leo rehearsed his words all morning, his stomach churning. He swept floors that didn't need sweeping. When Wrench arrived, handed over the cash, exact amount. As always, Leo's hands were slick with a sweat that had nothing to do with grease. Wrench. His voice came out thin. Can I ask you something? Off the books. Wrench stopped, turned his head slowly. His pale eyes fixed on Leo, and the casual atmosphere of the garage evaporated. It became an interrogation room. Leo laid it out, piece by painstaking piece. The 3 weeks of observation. The pressed clothes and the immaculate car. The phone call. He described the way the old man held himself, a kind of brittle pride that seemed close to shattering. The way he meticulously folded his blanket before the sun went down. He kept his voice low and steady despite the tremor running through him. He was begging, Leo said, his voice barely a whisper. He kept saying, "Please, just let me come home." Wrench listened without moving a muscle. His face was stone. The silence that followed stretched thin and tight, and Leo braced himself for dismissal. Then Wrench's gaze shifted past Leo, through the open bay door, across the street, to the library lot where the Chrysler sat in its usual spot. His jaw tightened. A muscle jumped in his. The year before, stopped by every evening to share a cup of tea and listen to Elias's stories. The lonely, silent house was filled with life again. Leo's garage changed too. The sons brought him their loyalty as surely as they brought him their bikes. Other clubs, hearing that Leo's shop was under Son's protection, sent their business his way. He had to hire 2 new mechanics just to keep up. One afternoon, Wrench arrived with a package, a black leather vest, identical to what the club members wore, except for the patch on the back, a wrench and hammer crossed beneath the words friend of the club. The highest honor they could give an outsider. It meant family. It meant protected. You saw something and you said something, Wrench said. That takes guts, Leo. Most people look away. Elias lived another 5 years, happy, safe, surrounded by the constant reassuring rumble of his adopted family's engines. When he passed, his funeral procession was led by 50 motorcycles, headlights cutting through the gray morning. A final thunderous salute to a good man. The son was never heard from again. And Leo never forgot what that decision had cost him. Almost nothing, and what it had given back. Not just to Elias, but to himself. He'd learned that heroes don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they notice the things everyone else is too busy to see. Sometimes they ask the question no one else is brave enough to ask. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything.